Hi, hello everyone. Good evening. How are you all? I hope all of you are doing well. Let me tell you that I am also good. Okay. Uh, right now the news is there is water crisis in Bangalore, and some of my friends are coming back to hometown. Water crisis in Bangalore, and the main reason is the Kaveri water issues. So there is no water. Okay. So that is the point now. I just got some news that my friends, I just hanged up a phone of my friend. My friend was telling that he is coming back to hometown. Why? Because there is no water, and the crisis, water crisis made the apartments. People left the apartments in Bangalore, and soon there will be water crisis in some other places also. Soon there will be water crisis in our places also. Already there are some, in some places there is water crisis. Why this? This is because of deforestation. Deforestation and we being negligent towards the nature. We being negligent towards the nature. Reckless behavior of the human beings that this is happening, because of which we had to face serious issues in case of water. Soon this is going to escalate and this happens to everyone. Please do take care of water. Wherever you find a tap which is open, please do close it and do something so that we can join our hands together for stopping this water crisis. So we have to do something, guys. We have to do something. Otherwise, there is some serious issues which we are going to face in our future. Definitely, our childhood was very good. Our childhood was happiest one. Why? Because we have never seen water crisis. I have never seen water crisis in my childhood. Right now, we are facing it because of some serious issues, serious matters. So please do take care of water, take care of nature. Okay. Being said that, okay, in last class for two chapters, so two units. This is unit number 2, which is going on. We are going to finish this unit. First unit, international trade. We are discussing chapter number 9, which is international trade, and some of the important topics we were discussing in unit number 1. We studied about some topics such as why international trade is required, what is the significance, and what are the theories relating to international trade that we discussed. Later in unit number 2, we discussed about there are some tariff measures and non-tariff measures to regulate the import and export. To regulate import, export, or international trade, we have some tariff measures. In last class, we discussed about many tariff measures. Tariff measures, it can be specific tariff, it can be ad valorem tariff, it can be mixed tariff, it can be many kinds of tariffs. Basically, import quotas, all these things that we discussed in last class. Today, directly, we are going into the next topic, non-tariff measures. So NTMs. We'll be discussing about NTMs, which is non-tariff measures. Okay. From the discussion above, from the discussion above, we have learned that tariffs constitutes the visible barriers to trade and have the effect of increasing the prices of imported merchandise. So merchandise ka this prices no that is increasing. Why? Because of tariffs, sir. See, if the value that you import is 100, we are adding tariff, import duty. Example 10 rupees. Finally, the price became 110. No, so that means it is increasing the price here, and it is visible. We can see that the price is increasing. By contrast, the non-tariff measures which have come into the greater prominence than the conventional tariff barrier constitutes the hidden or invisible measures that interfere with the free trade. So there are some invisible measures here, invisible, which we cannot see. See, this 10 rupees increase that we can see, but there are some invisible measures which we cannot see, but there are some barriers. Sometimes nowadays we are getting very much importance for our international trade also. Our international trade relations are uh, going to be better, which is compared to earlier, which is better. Earlier was also, it was good. It was very good. Now it has become little better, not little more better. And Why, sir? Because of some political conditions that we have in India. Right now, the political condition, very stable political conditions that we have, 2014, say 2023, this is 24. When 2014 to 2024, for 10 years, we had a very good economic condition. And I don't say that economic condition, we had a very good political condition, which was a stable politics, which was there, and that will definitely attract the world towards the economy of India. So this is, you cannot see that in any product. In any product, that won't increase. Price will not increase, but there are some invisible barriers to trade. Some of the barriers are also there. Some of the uh, what to say, support is also there. So NTMs, that is non-tariff measures, which you cannot see, it's not in the form of duties, consist of mandatory requirements, rules or regulations that are legally set by the government of exporting or importing or transit country. It should be kept in mind that NTMs are not the same as non-tariff barriers. So remember, NTBs are different from NTMs. Sir, what is NTMs? It is given here. There are some requirements. If you are importing any product, no, you have to file some of the documents. You have to take some of the licenses like this. There are mandatory requirements. There are rules also. There are regulations. So which are legally set by the government of exporting country, importing country, or transit country. So NTMs are sometimes used as means to circumvent free trade rules and favor domestic industries at the expenses of the foreign competition. So domestic industries के लिए that used to help in the name of foreign competition, expenses of foreign competition. In this case, they are called non-tariff barriers. Non-tariff barriers are thus subset of NTM. See, if NTM is whole, NTBs, non-tariff barriers, are part of non-tariff measures that have a protectionist or discriminatory intent compared to NTBs, which has NTMs. NTMs has protectionist or discriminatory intent compared to NTBs. Non-tariff measures encompass a broader set of measures. There are some many measures which are there in NTMs, but NTBs are very restrictive. According to WTO or agreements, the use of NTMs is allowed under certain circumstances. So you can use some of the NTMs, non-tariff measures, only under certain circumstances. Example of this include technical barriers to trade. We call it as TBT, technical barriers to trade, agreement, and the sanitary and phytosanitary measures. What is sanitary measures? See, example, if there is corona, the person who is coming from China is barred from entering India. Why? Because of sanitary measures for the health of the people. We are stopping that person to enter India. This is sanitary. This is sanitary measure. Phytosanitary, something related to plant. Plant. You cannot bring inside any plant without the permission of the government. So any plant in the sense, some of the plants, no, a new breed of plant, you cannot bring inside. Why you cannot bring inside? Because very simple. Sometimes this plants, no, plants, if you start rooting that plants here or planting it here, that will spoil the fertility of the soil. It can be a what to say? It can be a lab generated plant which is good in spoiling the fertility of the soil. That's why sanitary and phytosanitary measures are very important one. Whenever you are importing or exporting sanitary and phytosanitary measures, so that will exclusively protect Indian products, both negotiated during the Uruguay round. Uruguay, it is a place. It is a place. So Uruguay round. However, NTMs are sometimes used as a means to circumvent free trade rules and favor domestic industries at the expenses of the foreign competition. That means I am ready to leave the benefit of foreign competition, but I in the sense government. Government says that I am ready to leave the foreign competition or good products from the foreign, but what I want is I want my people. I want my people here and I want domestic industry. I am ready to forego the foreign. foreign products. In this case, they are called non-tariff barriers. It is not tariff. It's not related to tariff. I don't want your product. That's all. I don't want your product. I want to save my industries, the domestic industry, the people of domestic industry. I want to save them. Depending on their scope and or design, NTMs are categorized as technical measures. Technical measure refers to the product specific properties such as characteristics of the product, technical specifications, and production processes. एक मिनट क्या हुआ भाई? I'm just trying to connect to iPad. Wait. Yeah, just 2 minutes. Not even 2 minutes. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Here. So technical measures, I'll explain. See, there are some products, there are some technical barriers here. Technical measures, which says that what technical measure says, sir? It is stopping. Technical measure says there are some products which we cannot make that product to enter India because it has some hazardous content. It might have some hazardous content. It can be dangerous for the nature. It can be dangerous for human health, or it can be dangerous for the economy. So that technical measures, we are putting some of the product outside India so that we don't want that product. So this is technical barriers. Anything which contains some explosives, I don't want to make that goods enter India. So these measures are intended for ensuring the product quality, food safety, environmental protection, national security, and protection of the animal and plant health, like this. Correct. Now, there are some ingredients which might spoil my health, plant health, or animal's health, or it might be some of serious issue for national security, like this. I want to put them outside. I don't want that product. This is technical measures. There are some non-technical measures too. Non-technical measures relate to the trade requirements. For example, shipping requirements, custom formalities, trade rules, taxation policies, etc. There is no barriers. There is no barriers, but they say that if you want to enter, no, there are huge formalities which you have to follow. That will obviously discourage someone to import. Huge formalities you have to follow that will obviously discourage you from importing the goods into India. So that these are some of the ideas of the government. So these are further distinguished as hard measures. It can be hard measures, it can be threat measures or other measures. What is hard measures? Price and quantity control measure. So they will control the price of the product. So they might increase the price or control the quantity. They might say that you cannot import the goods which is more than so and so. Example, 50,000 liters of beer. You cannot import more than 50,000 liters of alcohol items. So this is one non-technical measure, may hard measures. Threat measures, anti-dumping and safeguard. If I find that you are dumping the goods, you remember what is anti-dumping? Where there is one nation, that country, no, in their market, they are selling at 100 rupees, for example. But they are selling in India at 90 rupees. 10 rupees is the difference. Why you are putting that 10 rupees difference? Because to spoil the market of India. That is called as dumping. So anti-dumping measures, safeguard measures, and other measures such as trade-related finance, investment measures. Remember this CVD. What is CVD? Countervailing duty. So this is put by the Indian government if they find that, if they specifically find that other measures may, if they specifically find that the other country which is which is exporting goods to India, if that country's government, if they are giving subsidy, if they are giving subsidy to the producers there, then our government will stop, or they will put something called as CVD. Extra duty will be put on them. This is called as CVD. Furthermore, the categorization also distinguishes between the import related measures which relate to the measure imposed by the importing country and export related measures which relate to the measures imposed by the exporting country itself. So importing country and exporting country. Import related measures which relate to the measures imported by the importing country and export related measures. That means what? Very simple, Baba. Import related measures are, we are exporting, we are restricting the import. Export related measures, we are restricting the export. You export everything outside. No, I don't want to export everything outside. I have to enjoy the resources of this country, yeah. Correct. So that's why government says that, no, don't export everything. Give some quality products to the Indians also. They have to enjoy the standard of living. So this is export related and import related measures. In addition to these, there are procedural obstacles. Simply, we are putting some procedural obstacle, making it very difficult so that the other person don't import. Government is putting so much pressure or obstacles so that it is very difficult for the citizens to import. Again, import barriers, no? It is one import barrier, which are practical problems in administration, transportation, delay in testing, certification, etc., which may make it difficult for businessmen to adhere to the given regulations. So it is very difficult to follow that regulation, so that it is also one barrier. In case of technical measures, sanitary and phytosanitary plays very important role. Sanitary and phytosanitary. SPS measures are applied to protect human, animal, or plant life from risk arising from additives, pests, pesticides, contaminants. So there are some contamination also. It can be radiations, it can be toxins, something which is toxic items such as poisoned items, or disease causing organisms, and to protect biodiversity. So if we have biodiversity, we want to protect that. For example, prohibition of import of poultry from countries affected by avian flu. So a kind of flu, it is just like COVID, pandemic flu. It is not flu, it is flu. Meat and poultry processing standards to reduce the pathogens. Residue limits for pesticides in the foods, etc. Residue limits, that means, so if you put some pesticides on the foods, no, even if you wash it, so it will not go. So this is limits. There should be a limit. If it is more than that, it is causing some serious problems to our health. You know that gobi Manchurian is banned because it is using some harmful that what colors. So that's why they are banning it. So they'll ban it. They have already banned it. Correct, no? Yes, I think they have already banned it. And I don't know. What if they use this for some other product? Same colors, no? If they use that for other products, do you ban that product also? Instead, what I say, no, it is better to ban that color. Correct. It would have been better if they banned that color. Okay. So anyways, leave. So this is nothing but sanitary and phytosanitary measures. Okay. Next one, technical barriers to trade, which is called as TBT. Technical barriers to trade, which cover both food and non-food trades. Okay. Traded products refer to mandatory standards and technical regulations. So there are some mandatory and technical regulations. So which says that you have to import only these kind of products. So it is non-technical barriers to trade. So it will stop us from importing that. Okay. So this is also an important point here. And continue. Regulations that define the specific characteristics that a product should have, such as size, shape, design, labeling, marketing, packaging, functionality, or performance and production. All these things. Production methods excluding measures covered by SPS agreement. If there is already some SPS agreements, no. So if there is already some SPS agreements, then we don't have to worry. If there is no SPS agreements, then it is a separate one. The specific procedure used to check whether a product is really conforming to these requirements are also covered under TBT. So almost sanitary and phytosanitary, it is something related to health. It can be related to humans' health or plant health. But technical barriers to trade, it is a wide range here. It can include anything. Okay, it can include anything, not just sanitary and phytosanitary. If it is already included in sanitary and phytosanitary, then it is not there. Otherwise, it is there. Next one, non-technical measures. So very important, some important points here, non-technical. These include different types of trade protective measures which are put into operation to neutralize the possible adverse effect of the imports in the market of importing country. Adverse effects of the imports in the market of importing country. So what are these measures, non-technical measures? First one is import quotas. Import quota. Sir, what is this import quota? We already discussed. There is some example, 50,000 quintals. 50,000 quintals of wheat you can import from other country. This is quota. Beyond this, you are not allowed at all. You are not allowed. An import quota is a direct restriction which specifies that only a certain physical amount of the goods will be allowed into the country during a given time period, usually 1 year. Import quotas are typically set below the pre-trade level of the imports and are usually enforced by issuing licenses. So license will be given to you. Based on that license, you can import. If you don't have the license, then no, you can not import. It is not possible to import if you don't have the license. So, sir, for that license, do we need to pay the amount, sir? Yes, you have to pay some license amount to get that license. If you don't have the license, then not possible. So that means you have to pay. Sir, beyond that, you are not allowed. But import quota tariff, beyond that, it is you are not allowed. Beyond that, you are not. There is huge. So sorry, there was some issue. I got a call, no, because of which that internet got disconnected here. So I was explaining that import quotas are roughly mainly two types. One is absolute quota and the tariff rate quotas. What is absolute quotas? Absolute quotas are quotas of a permanent nature limit the quantity of imports to a specified level during a specified period of time, and the imports can take place any time of the year. So absolute quotas. Example, I told you, 50,000 kg of quintals of wheat you can import. So in year, any example, in the first month you imported 5,000 quintals. In the second month you imported 3,000 quintals. Like this, you can go up to 50,000 in a year. Anytime in a year you can import that. So no conditions is attached to the country of origin of the product. What is country of origin? From which country it is not given. Country of origin, it is your wish, you can import from any country. You can import that product from any country. that restrictions are not there, but you have to import only such quantity, not more than that. For example, 1000 tons of fish imports, which can take place any time during the year from any country. When country allocation is specified, a fixed volume or value of product must originate in one or more countries. Some fixed volume or value of the product must originate in one or more countries. Okay. So you can bring that 1000 from anywhere from the world, but make sure that you will bring only that quantity, not more than that. Okay, sir. Next, with a quota, the government, of course, receives no revenue. Every time, whenever you import, no, it will not receive any revenue, but in the beginning, you have to pay some amount. The profits received by the holder of such import license are known as quota rents, while tariffs directly interfere with the prices that can be charged for an imported good in the domestic market. How, sir? Because see, I told you, if you are importing for 50 rupees, 5 rupees is the tariff, then directly it will impact the price, no? Directly it will impact the price. So that's why you should be very careful that the tariff that will definitely increase the price here. Market import quota interferes with the market prices indirectly. Obviously, an import quota always raises the domestic price of the imported goods, that we know. The license holder are able to buy the imports and resell them at a higher price in the domestic market, and they will be able to earn the rent on their operations over and above the profits they would have made in a free market. So whatever the free market, whatever the in profit that they do, no, above that they can make the profit. You know how? I'll tell you. For example, if I get 50,000 quintals ke liye, for 50,000 quintals, I got the quota. I got the license for 50,000, but my import is only 30,000. Sir, what I can do with this extra 20,000, sir? This 20,000 I can sell. The license can I sell, sir? Yes, I can sell the license also. It is very much possible to sell the license and make some extra money. I can make some extra money by selling that import over and above the profit which I do know. More than that, I can do some extra money. So the welfare effect of the quotas are similar to that of tariff. Just like tariff, quotas are also very similar. If a quota is set below the free trade level, if the quota is set below the free trade level, the amount of imports will be reduced. So free trade level example 60,000 quintals. If I put 50,000 quintals as the quota, then obviously the importers will try to keep their imports below, equal to or less than 50,000. Free trade is 60,000. So hereby the government reduces the import. Sir, a reduction in imports will lower the supply of the goods in the domestic market and raises the domestic prices. Domestic price will raise here. Sir, what happens if the domestic price raises? Domestic suppliers will get good prices. Domestic suppliers will get good prices, no? Consumer of the product in the importing country, they have to pay more amount now. So that for the consumers, it will be worse off because the increase in the domestic prices of both imported goods and domestic substitute reduces the consumer surplus in the market. So the price, because of tariff, no, the price is increasing here. If the price increases, kya hoga, sir? What happens if there is increase in the price? The domestic producers or domestic consumers, no, they will find it very difficult. They will find it difficult here. Why? Because consumer surplus is not there. They don't get the consumer surplus. At the same time, it is very difficult for them. Producers in the importing country are better off as a result of the quota. Producers in the importing country, no, they will get a good price for their product. Correct? No, they are getting good price for their product. The increase in the price of their product increases the producer surplus in the industry. The price increase also induces an increase in output of existing firms. So the firms which are existing, no, their output increases. Why, sir? Because very simple phenomena we have discussed in chapter 2. Second chapter we have discussed what we have discussed in second chapter. Supply. If the price increases, supply increases. Existing firm increase their price, supply, and that increases the output and employment and hence increase in profit. So this is one more idea. Quotas, import quotas will increase the price and it will increase the production, it will increase the employment as well. Same way, price control measures. Price control measures, including additional taxes and charges, are steps taken to control or influence the prices of imported goods in order to lower it. In order to support the domestic prices of these certain products when the import prices of these goods are lower. If the import prices of these goods are lower, okay. See, price control measures, which says that it is a control measure, including additional taxes. We are putting some additional taxes for what, sir? Just to save our domestic producers. Domestic price ke liye, just to save our domestic producers, we are doing this. Okay. So for domestic producers, we are doing this, these kind of gimmicks. So these are also known as para-tariff measures and include measures other than tariff measures. So it is not tariff, para-tariff, kind of tariff it is, but it is not the tariff. It's a measure just to help the domestic producers. That increases the cost of import in similar manner, in a sense, by a fixed percentage or by a fixed amount. So by a fixed percentage or by a fixed amount. Example, a minimum import price established for sulfur. Sulfur, if you are importing sulfur, no, there are some minimum amount which are considered as duty. Some minimum amount will be considered as duty here. So that you have to pay, which is mandatory. Okay, so that is one kind of duty, sir. Next one, non-automatic licensing and prohibitions. See, there are some automatic licensing. If you are importing education related software or if you are importing education related services, no? Example say, it is automatic licensing. You will get why? Because you are improving the educational standards of the people in India. Correct. But there are some non-automatic licensing. You don't get automatic licensing. For example, some sanitary and phytosanitary, you will not get automatic licensing. It can lead to biological war. So these measures are normally aimed at limiting the quantity of the goods that can be imported, regardless of whether they originate from the different sources or from one particular supplier. So this limiting the quantity that can be imported, it can be from many country or from one country. So we are stopping the import from them. Why? Because they are spoiling our market. These measures may take the form of non-automatic licensing or complete prohibition. For example, textiles may be allowed only on a discretionary license, a license by the importing country. India prohibits import-export of arms and related material from or to Iraq. Getting this now. Why to Iraq? Because they are good in using that and in a wrong way for that purpose. Further, India also prohibits many items, mostly of animal origin, falling under 60 exempt codes. So 60 exempt codes, they are prohibiting some of the product to enter India. Same way, financial measures are also there. Financial measures. The objective of financial measure is to increase import cost by regulating the access to and cost of foreign exchange for imports and to define the terms of payment. So very important one, financial measures. See, now example, you are importing from US. Okay. If you are importing from US, you have to pay for that product. If you are importing from US, you have to pay, no. How you will pay? You will pay rupee? No, you have to pay dollar. To pay dollar, you should have dollar. You should get dollar from someone. No. To get the dollar, to get that dollar, don't you think there is some transaction cost to get that dollar? This dollar, to get this dollar, there is something called as transaction cost. You have to pay the transaction cost. If you get the dollar, only then you will pay. No, I will make the transaction cost very high so that you will not get the dollar. If you don't get the dollar, you cannot import. Very simple one. It includes measures such as advance payment. One more measure. So they will make you pay in advance. For example, you are importing on 1st of January, or so 1st of April 2024. This is 14th of March 2024. They say that pay the 100% of the amount today. Example, if you are purchasing goods worth 72 lakhs, then they say that government says that you have to pay the 72 lakhs today. Half a month before you import, no, you have to pay that amount. So now what you have to do, you have to pay that amount. For half a month, you will not get the interest, and you lost interest also. The probable interest that you could have earned, the probable interest that you could have earned by keeping that amount in the bank. So that is lost, no. So that is lost. So that's why the government says it is a kind of measure to stop you from importing. And installment payment, or you have to pay in full, like this. So they will put some restrictions, extra restrictions on you. And foreign exchange control, denying the use of foreign exchange for certain type of import of the, or for goods imported from certain countries. It might put the restriction on goods, or it might put the restriction on country from where you are importing. For example, government of India, they can say that Iran and Iraq, you cannot import anything. Pakistan, you cannot export anything. You can import from Pakistan, but you cannot export. Don't give them any product. For example, an importer may be required to pay a certain percentage of value of the goods imported 3 months before the arrival of the goods, or foreign exchange may not be permitted for import of newsprint. So like this, foreign exchange are not given, or you have to pay 3 months prior to the import. Before you import, 3 months prior to the import, what you have to do? You have to pay in advance. First, you have to pay 3 months prior. That means you have to forgo that interest. You have to leave that interest. And measure effect in the competition. Here. So these measures are aimed at granting exclusive or special preference or privileges to one or a few limited group of economic operators. Some few groups of economic operators के लिए some license is given. Only they can import. People, just understand the gravity of this sentence. Only those who got the license, no, they can import. Not everyone. Everyone cannot import. Sir, if I want to import, no, I cannot import. There are some agencies which are set by the government, no, they can import. So it may include government impose special import channel or enterprises, and compulsorily use of national services. For example, a statutory marketing board may be granted exclusive right to import wheat. No one else can import wheat. Only they can import wheat. No one else can import wheat. Or a canalizing agency like State Trading Corporation may be given monopoly right to distribute palm oil. All others they cannot distribute. So if only they can sell, then what is the point of importing? We will not import at all, no? If only, see, for example, if only me, I can import some product, then if only me, I can sell that product, then you cannot import, no? Why? Because you cannot sell. Only I can sell. That means only I can import. This is one more idea of the government, where government says that if I don't give you the right to sell, then why will you import? When a state agency or a monopoly import agency sells in domestic market at prices above those existing in the world market, the effect will be similar to an import tariff. Just like effect will be similar to an import tariff, just like import tariff. So it will affect that others cannot import at all. Others cannot import that. Next one, government procurement policies. Government procurement policies may interfere with the trade if they involve mandates that the whole of a specified percentage of government purchases should be from domestic firms. See, sometimes in some cases, the government is the biggest purchaser. If government decides that we are purchasing only from domestic, that itself is the biggest advantage to domestic. No, they are not importing. Rather than the foreign firms, they will import or they will purchase only from those who produce it in India. Despite higher prices than similar foreign suppliers, in accepting the public tenders, a government may give preference to the local tenders. So the government is giving preference only to the local tenders. Next, trade-related investment measures, very important one. These measures include rules on local content requirement that mandate a specified fraction of final goods should be produced domestically. So usually the governments know, if the government get to know that you have to import much of the product from other country for manufacturing purpose, then government says that you can, for example, you can bring only 75% of the product from outside. Other 25% must be produced in India, or you have to purchase this from Indian. Example, a requirement to use certain minimum level of locally made component or restricting the level of imported components and emitting, not emitting, limiting it is, limiting limiting the purchase or use of imported product to an amount related to the quantity or value of local products that it exports. So, for example, a firm may import only up to 75% of the export earning of the previous year. So, what is your export earning of the previous year? It's 75% you can import. All other things you have to produce it in India. That means other 25% you have to produce in India. ठीक है ना? Yes, no? Okay. Distribution restrictions, very important one. See, there are some products you can import. Yes, I'll give you the right to import that product. For example, one car, okay, a luxury car. You can import this car. You can import this car. Okay, I'm talking about this. I'll come to this point. After importing, you cannot, for example, post sales, after the sales, only some person, that means Indians, only Indians can repair this. You cannot import repair services from outside India. You cannot bring someone from outside India to repair the goods. At least that work you give it to the Indians. No, why you are importing that also from other country? So producers may be restricted from providing the after-sale services for exported goods in the importing country. Such services may be reserved to the local service companies of the importing country. That's what I said. You can import the car, but government can put some restriction that the imported goods based services can be given only by the locals, not from foreign. You can bring the car from foreign country, but example, you can bring the car from foreign country, but the services on that car should be by Indian. Distribution restriction. Distribution restrictions are limitations imposed on the distribution of the goods in the importing country involving additional license or certification requirements. For example, Honda, that car, no, you can import, but Honda showroom, they cannot have, they cannot have their own showroom. At least that work, distribution work should be given to Indians. Indians should get that distribution rights. or they can put some other restrictions also. These may relate to the geographical restrictions or restrictions as to the type of agents who may resell. Who can resell? For example, a restriction that imported fruits may be sold only through the outlets having refrigeration facility. So this is one distribution restriction. If you have distribution restrictions, then distribution facility, then you can go for that distribution. Otherwise, you cannot go for distribution if you don't have that facility. बहुत important है, very important one. Remember this. Okay, understood, sir. Administrative procedures. Another potential obstruction to free trade is costly and time-consuming administrative procedure. It is very difficult to import because too much administration procedure. You have to give many documents there. You have to fill up many documents. That is very difficult one. That's why they will restrict, which are mandatory for import of the foreign goods. These will increase the transaction cost and discourage imports. The domestic import competing industries gain by such non-tariff measures. For example, examples include specifying the particular procedure and formalities, requiring license, administrative delay, red tape, and corruption in customs clearing, frustrating the potential importers. Procedural obstacle linked to the link to prove the compliance, etc. So these are obstacles now. It is very difficult to do all these activities. Who will do the activities nowadays? These activities are not done. They'll do the activities if it is very simple. Very restrictive compliance procedures that will stop us from doing that import. I don't want to do that import. Like this, administrative procedure will stop us. Okay. So this is one administrative procedure, that is also one restriction. Rules of origin. Next restriction is rule of origin. So there are some rules here. You can import only from those countries which are mentioned. If we don't mention that country, you are not supposed to import from that country. It can be import restriction or it can be origin, where it is produced, from where the service is given. For example, now Ukraine, what they do, they might say that whatever which is produced in Russia, we will not purchase. Or Russians, what they might say, whatever which is produced in Ukraine, we will not produce. Now Palestine, they might say that whatever which is produced in Israel, we will not purchase it. Whatever services which are given by Israel, we will not take it. That might be the restrictions which are put by these countries. That is rule of origin. The country of origin. The country of origin means what, sir? Means the country in which the goods was produced, or in the case of a traded services, the home country of the service provider. Rule of origin are the criteria needed by the governments of importing countries to determine the national source of a product. That means from where the goods are coming. I need to know from where the goods are coming. For example, earlier during any flus, example pandemic flus, COVID-19, pandemic flus, we used to see the origin. Food items, where is the origin? If it is China, namaskaram. I don't want that goods. So their importance is derived from the fact that the duties and restrictions in several cases depend upon the source of the import. So if you are importing from some countries which we have the rival country, then definitely I don't want that product. I'm so sorry. I'll not prefer that product because there is some reasons. So there are some reasons to this. The reason being can be, especially when different components of the product originate in different countries. Okay. So that can be some rivalry. It can be political rivalry or it can be geographical rivalry like this. Important procedural obstacles occur in the home countries for making available certifications regarding the origin of goods, especially when the different components of the product originate in different countries. So we have to see what is the origin of that goods, from where these goods are coming. So I need to know that for that reason. Next one, safeguard measures. There are some safeguard measures. These are initiated by the countries to restrict the imports of a product temporarily if its domestic industry is injured. That means there is no production which is happening in the domestic industry. Domestic industry itself is injured. So to rejuvenate or to put life back into that industry, we have to stop importing. Or if the domestic industries are threatened with a serious injury caused by a surge in import, the restrictions must be for a limited time and non-discriminatory. That means it is not from one country. I will not import from any country. That is the restriction. It cannot be discriminatory. Only for one country. I am not importing from one country. No, you cannot say that. It is against the world trade. There should be there will be some serious effect on that. Now, last one, which is embargoes. So what is embargoes, sir? An embargo is a total ban imposed by the government on import or export of some or all the commodities to particular country or regions for a specified or indefinite period. For some reason, we are restricting any export or import from outside. So there are some restrictions here. This may be done due to political reasons or for other reasons such as health, religious sentiments. This is the most extreme form of trade barrier, which is embargoes. Embargoes are most extreme form it is. So these are some of the important trade-related measures and barriers. So that will help us in regulating our import and export. Lastly, export-related measures. So what are export-related measures? Ban on export. We will not export at all. Ban. Export-related measures refer to all measures applied by the government of exporting country, including both technical and non-technical measures. Why they put this? For example, during the period of shortages, export of agricultural products such as onions, wheat, etc. may be prohibited to make them available for domestic consumption. Why? Because you cannot export that because we are not getting for our domestic consumption. Yeah. There is no onions that we can use for our domestic consumption. And you are sending onions to outside. Sir, what is onion? Onion. Okay. Onions outside. So you are sending onions outside. We want onions inside, sir. Export restrictions have an important effect on international market. By reducing the international supply, export restrictions have been effective in increasing international prices. International prices will increase. International price might increase, sir. I want that product to be in India. Why? Because in India also there is some shortage. In India there are shortage. For that purpose, I don't want it to be exported. I'm so sorry. I will not export it outside. I want it to be in India. Export taxes. An export tax is a tax collected on exported goods and may be either specific or ad valorem. We know what is specific. It can be a specified one or ad valorem, that is percentage. So the effect of an export tax is to raise the price of the good and to decrease the export. Since an export tax reduces the exports and increases the domestic supply, it also reduces domestic prices and leads to higher domestic consumption. Correct? No. Export taxes will lead to reduce the export. Why? Because domestic exports will increase the export price so that other person, no, the one who is outside India, he will not be interested in buying. Why? Because export price is more. So that will lead to price increasing, and that will lead to decrease in the exports, so that we will get more that kind of products in India for our personal consumption. Next one is export subsidies and incentives. Sometimes government will encourage export. We have seen that tariff on import that will hurt. Tariff on imports hurt the exports, and therefore countries have developed compensatory measures of the different types of the exporters like export subsidies, duty drawback, duty-free access to the imported intermediate, etc. Why this is given, sir? Just to help the exporters to export more. Governments or government bodies also usually provide financial contributions to domestic producers in the form of grants, loans, equity infusions, etc., or give some form of income or price supports if such policies on the part of the government are directed at encouraging domestic industries. Okay, encouraging domestic industries to sell specified products or services abroad. They can be considered as trade policy tools. So what happens finally? It will be considered as trade policy tools. Why, sir? We want to export more. So that will reduce the unfavorable balance of payment. So that will lead to the balance of payment, and it will support the form of income or price support. It will lead to the price support. Okay. Yes, sir. Lastly, voluntary export restraints. Voluntary export restraints. Okay, I'll give you one example. So there is one family, father, mother, and there are three children. Three children. And there is one more family, father, mother, and there is one child. What this child is doing, every time, no, it is giving some product to these three children. And these three children, no, are getting spoiled. Spoiled in the sense their behavior is changing and they are using some products which are not good for the health. So that what these parents do now, they'll ask these parents to stop their child from giving these kind of products. Voluntarily, please, voluntarily, you stop your person from exporting. This is called as voluntary restraint. Otherwise, what I have to do? I have to put a gate here so that your child will never get access to the company of our children. So like this. So that is voluntary export restraint. So voluntarily they are restraining their exports. Voluntary export restraints. Voluntary export restraints refer to a type of informal quota administered by an exporting country voluntarily restraining the quantity of the goods that can be exported out of that country during a specified period of time. Understood? So that means nothing but voluntarily they are stopping. Such restraint originate primarily from the political considerations and are imposed based on negotiations of the importer with the exporter. So it is purely based on negotiations with the of the importer with the exporter. The inducement for the exporter to agree to VER, voluntary export restraint, is mostly to appease the importing country and to avoid the effect of possible retaliatory trade restraint that may be imposed by the importer. So otherwise, what importer has to do? He will retaliate. He will put some restrictions. See, before I put some restriction, you stop yourself from giving or exporting. So if I put restrictions, you will get offended. I don't want you to feel that offended, so that you better stop your export. VERs may arise when the import competing industries seek protection from a surge of imports from the particular exporting countries. There are some particular exporting countries, they are increasing their exports. They go on exporting to the country, and I'll get hurt. Why? Because if you go on exporting into India, India will become a dustbin. It should not happen. So that VERs cause, as do tariff and quotas, domestic prices to raise and cause loss of domestic consumer surplus. So it will lead to loss of consumer surplus. Over the past 5 decades, significant transformations are happening in the terms of growth as well as trends of the flows and patterns of the global trade. The increasing importance of developing countries have been the feature of the shifting global trade patterns. The fundamental changes are taking place in the way countries associate themselves for the international trade and investment. See, This is one conclusion here. They are giving the conclusion, that is why import is required and why import is not required. So trading through the regions arrangements which foster the closer trade and economic relations is shaping the global trade landscape in an unprecedented way. Alongside, the trading countries also have devised ingenious policies aimed at protecting their economic interest. So, like this, see the trade, what imports and exports do, it will help. At the same time, it will destroy some market. So that we have to put some restrictions, and we will put some restrictions. We have to, and we will put some restrictions. At the same time, we will keep our economies open. The discussions in this unit are in no way comprehensive, considering the faster pace of the discovery of such protective strategies. Students are expected to get themselves updated on ongoing changes. So if there are some ongoing changes which is happening, you yourself have to get updated. Please do get updated. Okay. So that is about this unit. About the next unit. So what is there in next units? That is trade negotiations. We are going to discuss about the trade negotiations in the next unit, unit number 3. So we have 4 units, 4 or 5. If I'm not wrong, we have, this is a small unit. It's just a small unit here. And exchange rate and its economic effects. This is also little small unit. And last one, yeah, we have 5 units here. In chapter number 9, we have 5 units today and tomorrow. In 2 days, we are going to finish this chapter. And this is purely theory. This is purely theory, nothing related to the practical things here. Okay, wait. We'll take 5 minutes break, just 5 minutes. We are taking 5 minutes break. Okay, I'll be back. Yes, everyone, welcome back. And the next one, which is trade negotiations. So, what is this trade negotiation, sir? It is a kind of dialogues between the two countries. Dialogues between the two countries. That means, so one country is negotiating with another country. It's a kind of dialogues. Okay. And that depends on relation also. Agree? So now if two enemies are, if two enemies are talking, so then, I mean, if there is two enemies, in between them, a negotiation is happening. It is purely a restrictive negotiation. What is restrictive negotiation, sir? The one will not have any sentiments or one will not have any kind of uh, a favor doing response to other. He will not give any favorable response to other. If a good relation is there between me and you, then we look at win-win situation. So both should win. That is the situation. And if we are close friends, then don't think about conversation. I'm not talking about actual friends conversation. That is worse than everything. And you know that. The kind of conversation that we do with our friends, no, something very bad it is. Take a minute, I'll just put my laptop for charging. Yeah. Okay, here. So, introduction. The recent years have seen intense bilateral and multilateral negotiations. Bilateral means between two countries, multilateral means many countries together among different nations in the international arena. India, for example, has already become a part of 19 such concluded agreements and is currently negotiating more than 2 dozens of the proposals. Nowadays, it is more than 2 dozens. 2 dozens when it was 2019 or 20 May, it was 2 dozens. Now it is more than 2 dozens. National governments are not the sole stakeholders in trade negotiations. Why? Because it's not just government, it is us. We are doing some trade with other countries. No, that's why not just national government, even the citizens, many interest groups, lobbying groups, pressure groups, and non-governmental organization NGOs exerts their influence on the process. That means they are also going to give some influences or their inputs to the process. As anyone can guess, the position taken by each of the negotiating parties would represent their underlying agenda of the interest. Correct? No. When I'm negotiating with you, I will give importance for my self-interest and you will give importance for your self-interest. For example, in trade negotiation, when one party seems to be bargaining for market access through the reduction in the tariff. So if I am selling something to your country, you definitely put some tariff, import tariff. I will ask you to reduce that import tariff. And at the same time, what you think? You think about your domestic industries, correct? No. So these are mutual interest that we two have in our country. I look for access to your country, but you look for protection of your industries. Before we go into the discussion on multilateral trade negotiations and the related institutions, it is relevant to understand the nature of original as well as free trade agreements which evolve through negotiations. So we have to discuss about, before we go into the multilateral trade negotiations, first we have to understand what's a regional as well as free trade agreements. Okay. Now, first we will discuss about taxonomy or of regional trade agreements, RTAs. What is taxonomy? Types. Taxonomy means types, classifications. Okay. So first we will discuss about what are the types or classifications of RTAs. Regional trade agreements are defined as grouping of countries, not necessarily belonging to the same geographical region, not required, countries, grouping of countries which are formed with the objective of reducing the barriers to trade between the member countries. If there is a group, example Brazil, India, China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, like this. These countries are there in a group. Think they are thinking of reducing the barriers. Then this is called as RTAs, regional trade agreements. Not required that it should be in same region or geographical area, not required, but this is regional trade agreements, RTAs. So what they are thinking, sir, they are thinking of reducing the trade barriers between the members, between amongst themselves. As of 1st February 21, this is 24, 3 years got over. 3 years. 339 RTAs were enforced, but now it is more than that. Unilateral trade agreements. Now, the name itself says unilateral. You already know what is unilateral contract or agreement, under which an importing country offers trade incentives in order to encourage the exporting country to engage in international economic activities that will improve the exporting country's economy. So now you definitely get one doubt, sir. Why will exporting country is in interest of giving some advantages to the importing country? Why will exporting country do that, sir? Because of some philanthropic purpose. So GSP, that is generalized system of preferences, it is by uh, US. US being having a good hold on the world economy. They are giving extra advantages to the developing country. They say that don't worry, whatever the goods that you have, I will import. Send it to me. I will import. I will help you by importing. So this is unilateral trade agreement by some developed countries to the developing country. Next, sir. Bilateral agreement are agreement that set rules of trade between two countries, two blocks or block and a country. Now, what is block, sir? EU, South, European Union. European Union, that is a block actually. It contains many countries. Correct. No? European Union, United States of America. So like this. So this is a block here, block and a country. Now India and EU, EU and South Africa. So that is bilateral agreements where more than two countries are negotiating. That is bilateral. Okay. Next one, regional preferential trade agreement among a group of countries reduce trade barriers on a reciprocal and preferential basis. That means one will help other. So it is the uh, relation between two countries or two blocks. Reciprocally, they will help each other. For example, global system of trade preferences among developing countries. All the developing countries, they will make one group and they will help each other. So this is regional preferential trade agreements among group of countries. Next one is trading bloc. Trading bloc has a group of countries that have a free trade agreement between themselves and may apply a common external tariff to other countries. Very important one here. Common external tariff to other countries. So what is this, sir? Common external tariff. Between them, there is no tariff. Free trade between them, but to others, there is common tariff. For example, there are 5 countries, A, B, C, D, E. There are 5 countries. In between them, there is no tariff. If they are selling and buying in between them, there is no tariff. If they are selling to others, then there is tariff. For example, Arab League, European Free Trade Association, like this. These are in between them, there is no tariff. But if they are selling to others, other country, then there is tariff. Free Trade Area is a group of countries that eliminate all tariff and quota barriers on trade with the objective of increasing exchange of the goods with each other. So all the trade barriers and quotas are gone. It's not there. Eliminate. The trade among the member states flows tariff free, but the member state maintain their own distinct external tariff. Can you see that there is some similarities here? Uh, See, common external tariff. But here, differentiated, distinct external tariff. That is the difference between trading bloc and free trade area. That is the difference between trading bloc and free trade area. Okay. Examples: the Asian India free trade area is a free trade area among the 10 member states of the Association of South Asian Nations. Association of Southeast Asian Nations and India. It came into force on 1st August 2005. It came into force on 1st of August 2005. Okay. This is one free trade area negotiation or some acts. Now, a custom union is a group of countries that eliminate all tariff on trade among themselves but maintain a common external tariff on trade with countries outside the union. Okay, most favored nation. It is also uh, violating MFN, most favored nation. But wait, what is this most favored nation? We will discuss. The common external tariff, which distinguishes a custom union from a free trade area, implies that generally the same tariff is charged whenever a member imports goods from outside the custom union. Here, on import also there is same tariff. On import also there is same tariff. If you see all the points here, there is small difference between all the points. And you know which is very interesting one, that is common market. Very interesting one, which says that a common market deepens a custom union. So what is custom union? That understanding is deepened here. Deepens a custom union by providing for the free flow of the output and of factors of production by reducing or eliminating the internal tariff on goods and by creating a common set of external tariff. So internal tariff, reducing or eliminating the internal tariff on the goods and by creating a common set of external tariffs. So this is what the common market means. And it is a hybrid form actually. It is a hybrid form here. Economic and monetary unions. So this is, we know already, we know this. Economic and monetary union. See, as the trade between the countries that grows, as the trade between the countries that grows, no, now currency will give the problem. Currency is having some problem. That means our currency is different, your currency is different. So that will keep exchanging the currency, no? That will pose some problem here. To eliminate that, we will make one economic and monetary union. So we'll make one monetary union too. For a common market, the free transit of the goods and services through the borders increases the need for foreign exchange operation and result in higher financial and administrative expenses of the firm. Correct? No. If there is border and if there is different uh, prices or different currencies between the countries, then that definitely will make some issue. That will increase the transaction administrative expenses within the region. The next stage in the international sequence is formation of some form of monetary union. The best example is European Union. Euros, where we use euros. Euros as the common currency between the countries which are there in European Union. Okay. So in an economic and monetary union, the member shares common currency. Adoption of common currency also makes it necessary to have a strong convergence in macroeconomic policies. Economic policies between the countries, that should also be very similar. Otherwise, the currencies will differ. Euro. Both are euros, but both euros have different values. So this should not happen. No. So that's why. Okay. There has been a significant growth in international trade since the end of Second World War, mostly due to multilateral trade system, which is both a political process and a set of political institutions. It is political process because it is based on negotiations and bargaining among sovereign governments based on which they arrive at the rules governing between or among themselves. So how these rules came, sir? With the help of negotiations. So there were negotiations. That negotiations will make these rules and these what these kind of associations. Of pencil battery is very low, so I'll put it for charging. 2 minutes, guys. I'll be back. Just 2 minutes. I'll be back. It's not a break. It's not a break. I'm telling you. Just go through these points once again. All these points once again. I'll be back. Yes, everyone, welcome back. So here, the General Agreement on Tariff and Trade, GATT. So we are discussing about some important points of GATT now. General Agreement on Tariff and Trade. Earlier, no, in the beginning, there was no proper rules for the trade in the economy, especially in case of international trade. So there was no proper trade rules, but later they brought one rules. So they brought some rules here. So that was called as General Agreement on Trade and Tariff between the countries, GATT. The General Agreement on Trade and Tariff covers international trade in goods, not on service. Correct? No, yeah, goods it is. The working of GATT agreement are the responsibility of the Council for Trade in Goods. So that means it was not working on service. So that was the biggest drawback of GATT. Why? Because nowadays we are the highest exporters of service. We are the exporters of service now. So that means GATT is not applicable. So that's why GATT went. After GATT, WTO, World Trade Organization came, which is made up of representatives from WTO member countries. The Goods Council had 10 committees dealing with specific soon. क्या चल रहा है? Okay, can you listen to me now? Yes, everyone here. The GATT, which was generally that general agreement on trade and tariff, not it is not generally accepted accounting principle, not GAP, it is GATT, GATT, lost its relevance on 1980s because what is the reason, sir? It was obsolete to fast evolving contemporary complex world trade scenarios characterized by emerging globalization. So it was not giving any importance for the contemporary world, what is changing, how it is changing. No, it was not giving proper importance to that. International investment had expanded substantially. It was not giving any importance for international investments. So that it was not giving importance there. And later, intellectual property rights and trade in services. I told you, services, it is not giving any importance for services, only for goods. That was one more drawback. World merchandise trade increased by leaps and bounds and was beyond its scope. So it was made earlier, there was very less trade, but now there are more trade, which is beyond the scope of GATT. So that we found that it is obsolete. The ambiguities, that is difficulties in the multilateral system could be heavily exploited. Oh, sorry, ambiguities in the sense some kind of weakness that can be heavily exploited. Efforts at liberalizing agricultural trade were not successful. Agricultural trade was given importance, but liberalization was not successful, which was very much required because primary sector pe we all are dependent on primary sector. That primary sector has to get the importance. There were inadequacies in institutional structure and dispute settlement system. There were no institutional structure or inadequacy in institutional structure, which was might be related to this handling the issues or disputes, or might be related to administrative officers. Very less administrative officers were there. It was not a treaty. It's not a treaty between the countries, and therefore terms of GATT were binding only insofar as they are not incoherent with the nation's domestic rules. It is binding, but to very less extent it was binding. Okay, so these were the reasons where GATT lost its importance. So in Uruguay is a place, country, round, and GATT is not successful. We went for WTO. The need for a formal international organization which is more powerful and comprehensive was felt by many countries by late 1980s. Having settled the most ambitious negotiating agenda that covered virtually every outstanding trade policy issues. So Uruguay round, no? Earlier, there were many issues which were pending, which was not solved. But this Uruguay round, no, gave full stop. That did put full stop for all the issues, contemporary issues which was there earlier. Uruguay round brought about the biggest reform in the world trading system. Why? Because that their WTO got set up. Members established 15 groups to work on limiting the restrictions in the areas of tariff, non-tariff barriers, tropical products, natural resources products, textile and clothing, agriculture, safeguard against sudden surge in the import subsidies, etc. Subsidies, countervailing duties, trade-related intellectual property restrictions, trade-related investment, like this. So there were many restrictions which were there, no, that was liberalized. At the same time, some of the restrictions were put, such as GATT system, dispute settlement procedures, implementation of NTB, non-trade barriers, Code of Tokyo round. So codes of Tokyo round, especially on anti-dumping. All these were put into force. All these were put into force by that Uruguay round. The round started in Punta del Este in Uruguay in September 1986 and was scheduled to complete it by December 1990. However, due to many differences and especially due to heated controversies over agriculture, no consensus was arrived at. I believe that you know what is the meaning of consensus. Consensus means common interest. So consensus was arrived at. Finally, in December 1993, the Uruguay round, the eighth and the most ambitious and largest ever round of multilateral trade negotiations in which 123 countries participated. This Uruguay round में 123 countries participated and was completed after 7 years of negotiations. Agreement was signed by most countries on 15th April 1994 and took effect on July 1995. It also marked the birth of World Trade Organization, WTO. You know that there are two miracles which has happened on 1st July 1995. First one is WTO came into force, and the second one is the birth of CA Nagendra Bhaktha. अरे यार उठा ले यार मुझे. अरे बाबा रे बाबा उठा ले रे मुझे. अरे मुझे नहीं रे. अरे इनको नहीं रे. मेरे को नहीं. Okay. So yes, that was my birthday. 1st July 1995, WTO also came into force. It also marked the birth of WTO, World Trade Organization, which is the single institutional framework encompassing the GATT as modified by the Uruguay round. So that also got modified. WTO came into force, GATT modified, that became WTO. So now we have to discuss, this is the preliminary of WTO. So what has happened? There were many reforms which were there, and after that reforms, that GATT was not successful. GATT was not so much successful. So that what we did, we went for WTO. We have established WTO, World Trade Organization. The World Trade Organization, WTO, the World Trade Organization is the only global international organization dealing with the rules of the trade between the nations. At its heart, are the WTO agreements negotiated and signed by bulk of the world trading nations and ratified in their parliament. So what they do now? So in World Trade Organization, they will do some agreements, negotiations, and later in their parliament, they are going to discuss that again and they will ratify it. You know, by now, you know what is the meaning of ratification. They will reconfirm that. That is ratification. And the goal is to ensure that trade flows as smoothly, predictably, and freely as possible. It should be smooth, it should be predictable, and it should be free as possible. The principal objective of WTO is to facilitate the flow of international trade smoothly, freely, fairly, and predictably. So that was their main objective. Remember this main objective: freely, smoothly, predictably, fairly, and fairly. So the WTO has 6 key objectives, very important objectives. 6 key objectives are there here: to set and enforce the rules for international trade. Rules should be easy and at the same time, it should be followed by everyone. Rules. Second one, to provide a forum for negotiating and monitoring the further trade liberalization. To provide a forum for negotiating. So earlier there was no negotiation, just setting. Later, if they want to change it, there was no negotiation earlier. Now we can negotiate to resolve trade disputes, to resolve the trade disputes. If there are any disputes that can be resolved. And later, to increase the transparency of decision making. Earlier decisions were taken by the countries without any approval of other country. Simply if they believe that or if they think that they have to change the rules, they will change that rules. So there was not fairness. There was no fairness in changing the rule. Now they have the fairness, increasing the transparency of decision making, and to cooperate with other major international economic institutions involved in the global economic management, and to help developing countries benefit fully from the global trading system. Now, usually, who will get the advantage? Who will get the advantage of international trade? Usually, it is the developing country. It is the developing country which will get the advantage. Okay, it's the developing country that will get the advantage here. Fine. So for them to completely reap the benefit, no, these ideas were given. Yes. Now it's trying to see that the objective of the WTO agreements as acknowledged in the preamble of the agreement. So what is this preamble? Nothing but in the kind of the beginning. In the beginning, we will see that what are the main objectives or the purpose, that is preamble of WTO, includes what is there in the preamble, very important one: raising the standard of living, ensuring full employment, and a large and steadily growing volume of real income and effective demand. You know, by now, you know what is the meaning of real income. There is real GDP and nominal GDP. And expanding the production of the trade in the goods and services. So what is their main agenda? First one, increasing the standard of living. Full employment. Okay. Volume, increase in the income, volume of income, real income, and increasing the demand. At the same time, expanding the sales in products of goods and services. Okay, sir. Understood. Now, what is the structure of WTO? That means who are involved in WTO? Who are the people who are involved in WTO? The WTO activities are supported by Secretariat located in Geneva. Head office in Geneva, headed by Director General. So there is one DG, Director General. It has 3-tier system of decision making. The WTO top level decision making body is the ministerial conference, which can take decision on all the matters under any of the multilateral trade agreements. So all the matters which are related, no, on that multilateral trade agreements, where there is, they will take the decision. The ministerial conference meet at least once in every 2 years. Once in 2 years, guys. It is once in 2 years. And the next level, see, what is the first level? Secretariat level or ministerial conference. Ministerial conference. It is once in 2 years, at least once in 2 years. It can be more than that. The next level is General Council, which meets several times a year. It's not once in a year or twice in a year, several times a year at Geneva headquarters. May the General Council also meets as the trade policy review body and the dispute settlement body. So they will go for trade policy review and they will dispute settlement. Very important one. Earlier there was no proper this uh, arrangements for dispute settlement. There was no proper body for dispute settlement. Now there is body, that is next level, second level, that is General Council. At the next level, third level, the Goods Council, Service Council, and Intellectual Property Council report to the General Council. These councils are responsible for overseeing the implementation of WTO agreements in their respective areas. So what they do? Country-wise, they will look after whether the WTO rules are properly taken care. Okay. So they will look after for the these rules, taking care of the rules in their areas of specialization. The WTO Secretariat maintains the working relation with almost 200 international organizations in activities ranging from statistics, research, standard setting, and technical assistance and training. So basically what we discussed, sir, 3 points. We discussed about three important points. First level, ministerial level. Second one, General Council. Third one, Goods Council, Service Council, and Intellectual Property Council. Ministerial level, that is very the top level. Second level, may General Council, they go for dispute resolution like this. And the third council is taking some actions, functional actions on goods, services, and intellectual property. Guiding principle of World Trade Organization, WTO. So who will guide this WTO? Who will guide this WTO? So that is given here. Who will guide this WTO, sir? Guiding principle. So on what principle it is working? Right from its inception. That means from the beginning, right from the beginning. So WTO has been driven by a number of fundamental principles which are the foundations of multilateral trading system. Many principles were there which were guiding them. Following are the major guiding principles. Number one, trade without discrimination. So you have to trade. We are giving you the license to trade, but don't do discrimination. So most favored nation, in that the first point is most favored nation. Treating other people equally around WTO agreements, countries cannot normally discriminate between their trading partners. Most favored nation. So MFNs, most favored nation. I told you we will discuss about most favored nations later. So that is now. Right now we are discussing about most favored nations. What is this most favored nations? There is one group. So they will make it as example A, country B, country C, country D, country E, country F. There are 6 nations which are example say most favored nations. So they cannot discriminate between them. Between them, no. Everyone are equal. But outsiders के लिए they can treat it differently. They can. Okay. Grant someone a special favor and you have to do the same for all other WTO members. So if you are giving special favors to some, then you have to give special favors to all. Trade in goods, MFN I'm so sorry. I got a call, no? So that will interrupt or that will disturb my internet. Okay. So there was Article 2 and the agreement on trade related aspects of intellectual property rights, TRIPS. So intellectual property rights. Nowadays, what is where there is infringement? There is infringement in intellectual property right. That is what important nowadays. So we are selling goods, not just the goods, we are selling the intellectual property rights also. Article 4, although in each agreement the principle is handled slight differently, together those three agreements cover all three main areas of the of trade handled by the WTO. Okay. Now here there are some exceptions which are allowed. For example, countries can set up a free trade agreement that applies only to the goods traded within the group, discriminating against goods from outsiders. So what you can do, in between you, there cannot be discrimination. But from outside, you can put one rate and others can put another rate. That will not amount to discrimination, but in between you, there should not be any discrimination. National treatment, very important one. The treatment of the goods. See, if you import one goods, example, if I'm importing this remote, if I'm importing this remote, if I'm importing this, what before, see, until I pay import duty, it is foreign goods. Once we pay import duty, it will be considered as Indian goods. Later, you cannot discriminate. You are not supposed to discriminate. At the same time, foreign nationals as well. Foreigners, you have to treat them well, just like your neighbors. So you have to treat them well. You are not supposed to treat them differently. Treating foreigners and locals equally. Imported and local produced goods should be treated equally, at least after foreign goods have entered the market. Once foreign goods enters the market, you have to treat it as if it is your goods. The same should apply to the foreign and domestic services and to foreign and local trade markets, copyrights and patents. This principle of national treatment is also found in all three main WTO agreements. So this is very important one. So once you import, no, it is as good as your own product. Okay, so that was about two important points. And free trade gradually through negotiations. What happens to the free trade, which is gradually through negotiations? What happens, sir? Lowering trade barriers is one of the most obvious means of encouraging trade. If you lower the trade barriers, it will encourage the trade of the people. Okay, trade of the country. So in between the country, so the trade will increase if there is a good negotiation or if you reduce the trade barriers. The barrier concerned include custom duties and measures such as import bans or quotas that restrict the quantities selectively. So if you reduce the tariffs, it will increase the quantity of sales and at the same time, it will improve the relation between the people. It will improve the relation also. The WTO agreement allow the countries to introduce changes gradually through progressive liberalization. What is progressive liberalization? We don't liberalize it at once. We will not liberalize it at once. Progressively, we will liberalize this, not at once. So that is progressive liberalization. Developing countries are usually given longer to fulfill their obligations. Why? Because they are developing countries. No? For that purpose, longer durations are given to them so that you can fulfill any obligations or conditions and later you are free. Predictability. Next one. What we are discussing, sir? We are discussing guiding principles. We are discussing guiding principles. Predictability. WTO make sure that the other countries, the other countries, no, their move should be predictable. Though binding and transparency, sometimes promising not to raise a trade barrier can be as important as lowering one. So if I promise that I will not increase the trade barrier, so that is as good as lowering one. Because the promise gives business a clearer view of their future opportunities. With stability and predictability, investment is encouraged, jobs are created, and consumers can fully enjoy the benefit of competition, choice, and lower prices. So that's why the predictability. If there is a promise, you can predict that in future he will not increase the price. In the World Trade Organization, WTO, when countries agree to open their market for goods and services, they bind their commitments for goods. These bindings amount to ceiling on custom tariff rates. Once you bind for some item, some product, once you bind there, so you cannot change, you cannot increase or you cannot decrease. So it is bound tariff, kind of bound tariff. Sometimes countries tax imports sometimes countries tax imports at the rate that are lower than the bound rate. So which are lower than the bound rate. Frequently, this is the case in developing countries. In developed countries, the rate actually charged and bound rates tend to be the same. What you actually charge and what is the bound rate, which will tend to be the same. It is same here. A country can change its bindings but only after negotiating. So we discussed that in bound tariff. Remember bound tariff? So you can change only after proper negotiation. Before that, you cannot change. Okay. So which could mean compensating them for loss of trade. One of the achievements of the Uruguay round of multilateral trade talks was to increase the amount of trade under binding commitments. In agriculture, 100% of the products now have bound tariffs. The result of all this is a substantially higher degree of market security for traders and investors. Okay. A higher degree of market security for traders and investors, that is actually there in case of agriculture. And now bound tariff in agriculture. Okay, the system tries to improve predictability and stability in other ways as well. One way is to discourage the use of quotas and other measures used to set limit. So, predictability. So, it is not required that you always need to promise. You need to promise, that is not required. Not required that you are required to promise. Sometimes reducing the quotas. Correct. Discouraging the use of quotas, the measures used, that is also a good measure here. That is also kind of predictability, so that we will get to know that in future he will not increase the quota. Another is to make countries' trade rules as clear and public, transparent as possible. So any rules which are set by the government, we are making that as transparent as possible. Okay. Yes, sir. Here, promoting fair competition. One more guiding principle is fair competition should be there between the countries. There should be a fair competition. Promoting fair competition, the WTO is sometimes described as free trade institutions, but that is not entirely accurate. So that is not entirely accurate, free trade institutions. So sometimes we say that it should be free trade. No, it's not accurate. The rule on non-discrimination, MFN, and national treatment are designed to secure fair conditions. So usually it is not possible, but we are doing some ideas to secure the fair trade. So two are those on dumping and subsidies. The issues are complex and the rules try to establish what is fair or unfair and how governments can respond in particular by charging additional import duties calculated to compensate for damage caused by the unfair trade. So sometimes the governments of each country, they will put some restrictions. They will put the restrictions. Government will put some restrictions. So they will charge additional import duties. Okay. So if they feel that it is unfair, okay, then they will compensate for this restriction. So many of the other WTO agreements aim to support fair competition in agriculture, intellectual property, services, for example. encouraging development and economic reform. So this is one example here. Sorry. No. For example, intellectual property rights, services, and in agriculture, they are putting some agreements. So these are some of the examples. And the last one, encouraging development and economic reform. So this is last guiding principle of WTO. Okay, what they say, WTO system contributes to development. We know that. On other hand, developing countries need flexibility. So if you put more restriction, that will snatch their flexibility in time they take to implement the system's agreement. And the agreements themselves inherit the earlier provisions of GATT that allow for special assistance and trade concessions for the developing countries. The point itself says that agreement themselves inherit the earlier provisions of GATT. Some of the earlier provisions of GATT, no, that was taken by WTO. Over three quarters of WTO members, over three quarters of WTO members are developing countries, and within three quarters of constitution of WTO, many of the members were developing countries and countries in transition to market economies. During the 7.5 year of Uruguay round, over 60% of the countries implemented trade liberalization programs autonomously. At the same time, developing countries and transition economies were much more active and influential in the Uruguay round. So, WTO was found in Uruguay round now. Over 60 of the developing countries and transitional economies were much more active. Why? Because it is WTO is meant for whom? The WTO is meant for these developing economies. That's why they were much more active negotiations than in any previous round, and they are even more so in the current Doha development agenda. We will discuss about Uruguay round is done, now Doha round. So we are discussing something about Doha round as well. Okay. So this is about the guiding principles of WTO. We will discuss about some of the important agreements in WTO. There is nothing to explain in WTO agreements. I'll just go on summarizing that point. We will take some 5 minutes break. Okay. 5 minutes break. After that, we will continue with the WTO agreements, which are very important. Only that there is nothing to explain. Nothing to explain. You just have to keep that in mind. Okay. Yeah. March. So I'm so sorry. I'm a little late. So today also I am going to leave you little early. Not too early, but little early. So I have some work to do. So sorry, guys. Huh. WTO agreements. So what are the WTO agreements? The WTO agreements cover goods, services, and intellectual property and permitted exceptions. There are goods, services, and IPR, and there are some permitted exceptions also. That means which are not covered in agreements. These agreements are often called WTO trade rules, and WTO is often described as rule based. So it is always it always considers some rules, a system based rules. The rules are actually agreements that the government negotiated. The governments negotiated. Various countries ka governments know that they will negotiate. So following are the important agreements under WTO. What is agreement? Nothing but rules. The following are the rules here. Since a thorough discussion on the features of each agreement is beyond the scope of this unit, only the major provisions are given below. So detailed discussions we are not doing. Some major provisions no, that are discussed below. Somewhere 10, 11 provisions are there. Agreement on agriculture aims at strengthening GATT disciplines and improving the agricultural trade. So wait. There was an issue. Yeah. So agriculture has given was given more importance, and it includes specific and binding commitments made by WTO members of the government in the three areas of market access, domestic support, and export subsidies. All this access to the market plus domestic support in that market and export subsidies for agriculture, mainly for agriculture. Next one, agreement on sanitary and phytosanitary. Very important one because it is related to the health. Phytosanitary measure established multilateral framework for the planning, adoption, and implementation of sanitary and phytosanitary measures to prevent such measures from being used for arbitrary or unjustifiable discrimination or for camouflaged restraint on international trade and to immunize their adverse effect on the trade. So it says that you are not supposed only for the benefit purpose. You have to do it only for benefit purpose, not for discrimination, not for taking any undue advantages. So this is sanitary and phytosanitary measures. You cannot discriminate. Point 3, which says that agreement on textile and clothing replaced the multi-fiber arrangements which was prevalent since 1974 and entailed import protection policies. So this is one policy which is not, there is nothing to explain here. So textile and clothing replaced the multi-fiber agreement. So earlier it was multi-fiber agreement arrangement. It was there. Right now it got replaced. So ATC, which is Agreement on Textile and Clothing, provides that the textile trade should be deregulated by gradually integrating it into GATT disciplines over 10 years transition period. So most regulations were there. It has to be deregulated. Agreement on technical barriers to trade aims to prevent standards and conformity assessment system. That means they will put some standard for import and conformity assessment, whether that standards are complied with or not. Okay. Securing their transparency and harmonization with international standard. Often, excessive standards or misuse of standards in respect of the manufactured goods and safety environment regulations act are trade barriers. So acts as trade barriers. So what are these? So misuse of standards. If you are If there are standards, you have to go as per the standards. Misusing the standards in respect of manufactured goods, safety and environment regulations act as trade barriers. Point number 5. Agreement on trade-related investment measures, TRIMS, we call it as TRIMS, expand disciplines governing investment measures in relation to the cross-border investments. See, sometimes there is border, now India and Pakistan. So cross-border investment, so that has to be regulated, which has high security alerts and security issues. It stipulates that countries receiving foreign investment shall not impose investment measures such as requirements, conditions, and restrictions consistent with the provisions of the principles of national treatment and general elimination of quantitative restrictions. See, sometimes they will put the restriction, they will take out the restrictions, especially quantitative restrictions. Okay, that is some provisions. The restrictions which are inconsistent with the provisions of principles of national treatment. So we have already discussed about the principle, guiding principle, national treatment. So if it is against that, then they will put some quantitative restrictions. So that can be taken out, or they can put some extra restrictions also. For example, measures such as local content requirement and trade balancing requirement should not be applied on investing corporations. So measures such as local content requirements. So we discussed about local content requirement. Remember that if you are importing, you cannot import that in manufactured. You have to get some reduced tariff. You have to manufacture the complete item here, and that should contain some local items. So this is also one trade-related investment measures. Anti-dumping agreement seeks to tighten the and codify disciplines for calculating the dumping margins and conducting dumping investigations, etc. What is dumping here? Remember what is dumping? Dumping is nothing but where in the exporting country, in their market, the value is high. But in our market, when they export to our market, they purposefully put less price. That is dumping. Now that has to be measured. Margin has to be measured and investigations, whether it is actually dumping or not. Next one, custom valuation agreement specifies rule for more consistent and reliable customs valuation and aim to harmonize custom valuation system on an international basis by eliminating arbitrary valuation systems. So we will eliminate arbitrary valuation system, international basis, by eliminating arbitrary valuation system. See, remember, customs valuation agreement. Right now, you don't have customs in your syllabus. When it comes to CA finals, you have to study about customs. Customs you have to study. So which specifies the rule for more consistent and reliable customs valuation. So you cannot do customs valuation as per your wish. So what we do? Custom valuation should be harmonized and it should be based on rules. Harmonized valuation. That what is harmonized valuation? Not just in India. The same valuation should be rule should be there in other country also. Every country, all the countries, the valuation is harmonized. Same kind of valuation rules and procedures. Otherwise, in India, the value is different. In America, value is different. In China, value is different. Like this. Next, agreement on pre-shipment inspection. Before you ship the goods from exporting country to importing country, pre-shipment, before that goods is coming to India, there has to be some inspection, which intends to secure the transparency of the pre-shipment inspection, wherein a company designated by the importing country. Example, if I am importing goods from China, I will keep my personals in China to inspect that goods. See, it can be done once you receive the goods. Once I receive the goods, I can do the inspection here. What if the goods is not as per the standard or as per the requirement? I have to ship that again. No, ship it back to China. Simply a double cost. Instead, if we find that in the inspection, if we find that the goods are not up to the standard, what we can do? We can reject it there. So conduct inspection of the quality, volume, price, tariff classification, custom valuation, etc. for merchandise in the territory of the exporting country on behalf of the importing country's customs office and issues the certificate there in the dockyard of that country. They only provide us some certificate. The agreement also provides for mechanism for solution of disputes between PSI agencies and exporters. Next one, the agreement on rules of origin provides for harmonization of the rules for origin for application to all non-preferential commercial policy instruments. That means everyone should put their the rule of origin. So we have to provide that. That means from where, what is the sources of this product, that is harmonized. It also provides for dispute settlement procedures and creates the rule for origin committee. So rules of origin committee, that means from where this goods has origin. What is the origin? Where is the origin of this goods, which is required so that many disputes related to the natural disaster or anything related to that can be easily solved. Agreement on import licensing procedure relates to the simplification of administrative procedure and to ensure their fair operation so that import licensing procedures of different countries may not act as trade barriers. So import licensing that will not act as trade barriers provided you have paid some import license fees. So which will make nowadays import licensing is simplified. So what it will simplify? It will simplify the administrative procedure. You just have to show the import license and you have to show your accounts. I have imported and I have the license. That means the procedures will get reduced. Of different countries may have may not act as the trade barriers. So it will not act as trade barriers. Import license, there is no procedure, much procedure which is involved. Easily you can import and export. Okay. Agreement on subsidies and countervailing measures aims to clarify definitions of subsidies, strengthen the disciplines by subsidy type, and to strengthen and clarify the procedure for adopting countervailing tariff. You remember CVD? In today's class also we discussed about CVD, countervailing duty. That means if I find that the other country exporter is getting the subsidy from their government just to sell the goods in India and to spoil the market, then we will put this CVD. But CVD you cannot put simply. There are some rules here. So we have to define what is subsidy and what are the disciplines by subsidy type. So what kind of subsidy it is, and to strengthen and clarify the procedures for adopting countervailing tariffs like this. Next one, agreement on safeguards, clarify disciplines for requirements and procedures for imposing safeguards and related measures which are emergency measures to restrict the imports in the event of sudden surge in the imports. There are some time where sudden surge in the import because of scarcity or shortages. So then we will import some safeguard duty. Remember safeguard duty, just to safeguard the people of that country, the domestic producers of that country. We will safeguard and related measures which are emergency measures to restrict the import in the event of sudden surge in the imports. Safeguard measures. How you can put safeguard measure? WTO will dictate. WTO will dictate about that. Next, General Agreement on Trade in Services, GATS. This agreement provides the general obligations regarding the trade in services. That means what are the obligations that you can put, such as most favored nation treatment and transparency. In addition, it enumerates service sector and stipulates that in the service sector for which it has made commitments, a member country cannot maintain or introduce the market access restrictions measures and discriminatory measures that are severe than those that were committed during the negotiation. See, sometimes during negotiation, we will put some restrictions, correct? Market access restrictions. But in service, it is very difficult to find out whether the other person got the access to this market or not. Whether that person, see, I will give you the access. Think that you are exporter. I will give you the access for some market, but I will not get to know. Sometimes I will not get to know if you access some other market. Why? Because service may there is no track. Goods may there is track. The goods has to go in a goods, gadi, carrier. But services will go through the wire also. Nowadays, wire is also not required. I am giving the service from my office, and you are in your at your home, and I am giving you the service. No one will get to know. You will put the earphone, and no one will get to know whether you are watching movie or the class. एक minute. Yes, that is services. In case of services, we will not get to know. There is no track. So online services can be given, there is no track. In that case, there are some restrictions, and those that were committed during the negotiations, there will be some measures which are severe than those restrictions. I mean, those measures which will be put during the negotiation. Next one, agreement on trade related aspects of intellectual property rights, TRIPS. We call it as TRIPS. This agreement stipulates most favored nations treatment and the national treatment for intellectual properties, such as copyright, trademarks, geographical indications, industrial designs, patents, correct? No, IC, circuit layout designs, and undisclosed informations like this. There are many intellectual properties. In addition, it requires member countries to maintain high level of intellectual property right protection. That means if I give you IPR, example, trademark, then you have to use it in a good way. You cannot sublease it to someone else. Not possible. And to administer a system of enforcement of such rights, it also stipulates the procedure for settling the disputes. So, specially related to TRIPS. Earlier, only goods were there. Now, services and trade-related intellectual property rights. That is also getting sold between the nations, and there is high standards or measures, protective measures which are being applied nowadays. Last but one, TPRN, Trade Policy Review Mechanism, provides the procedure for trade policy review mechanism. That means first we will do the trade policy. Later, what if we don't review it? Why? Because time changes, trade style also changes. So that is to conduct periodical review of the members' trade policies and practices conducted by the Trade Policy Review Body, TPRB. So they are review body. They keep reviewing whether these members are going through, which is proper or not. That which is they are in conformity with the today's what whether they are in conformity with the today's standard of trade or not. Lastly, plurilateral trade agreements. Multilateral negotiations are those negotiations involving the entire WTO contracting parties. Entire WTO contracting parties are there now in plurilateral trade agreement, not plurilateral, plurilateral. The plurilateral trade agreements invoke the several countries with a common interest. So they have common example, terrorism. Terrorism, that is common interest. We all have common interest. That means terrorism has to be reduced with a common interest, but do not involve all WTO countries. Sometimes trade related. Terrorism is not trade related, but trade related maybe there are some plurilateral trade agreements which almost all the countries, many countries, they are interested in agreeing to these contracts. Not all the plurilateral agreements are negotiated within the WTO framework. Sometimes plurilateral agreements are outside the WTO. framework. So these are some of the 10, 15 to 16 agreements or rules which were there, and not so important one, but better you have a knowledge about this. You keep studying, you keep reading about that, so that it will be there in your mastishk. Okay, I believe, I agree that people, it's not difficult one, but it is irritating one. So it is irritating. Why? Because we have to keep a track of all these things, and we have to keep studying, sir, how to remember this. I know this is irritating one, but somehow you have to find one idea to remember this. And I strongly believe that ICAI will not ask the question based on your memory. They don't ask the question based on your memory. Just they try to, they try to assess you about your knowledge of current affairs and about international trade. So that is what they have. And I always believe that where there is bhakti, there is way. What is the meaning of bhakti? Bhakti is not a girl's name here. Bhakti is a dedication, kind of dedication, devotion, not dedication, devotion, devotion towards the work. So Bhagwan Krishna, he said that in Bhagavad Gita, ये यथा माम प्रपद्यन्ते यांस्तथैव भजाम्यहं मम वर्त्म्यानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्य पार्थ सर्व. That I already told you. The one who does the bhajan in the sense who keeps thinking about me, and the one who follows the way which I give. So definitely he will get my a presence. He will see my presence in all of his works. ये यथा माम प्रपद्यन्ते तांस्तथैव भजाम्यहं मम वर्त्म्यानुवर्तन्ते. I also reciprocate in the same way. That means how you see me, I will reciprocate in the same way. If you think that I am easy to get, then I'll be easy on. If you think that it is difficult, then it will be easy. I mean it is difficult. If you think that, see, one subject, think that economics as Krishna. If you think that economics is easy, then definitely economics is going to be an easy task. If you think that economics is difficult, then it will be definitely difficult. Okay, for that, I am telling you, you have to start thinking economics is easy and you can do it. Yadbhavam tadbhavati. The how you think, no, exactly in the same way it happens. So that is yadbhavam tadbhavati. How you think, it happens in the same way. If you think that it is difficult, then it will be difficult. If you think that it is easy, then it is easy. And I always tell the students that you are, see, I told you about the devotion. Devotion. I just remember that Bhagavan Rama, Sri Ramachandra, what happened while they were constructing the Lanka Setu? What has happened there? So if you write, if a monkey writes Rama on the stone and he puts it in the water, that starts floating. The Rama starts floating. Now Sri Ramachandra, Bhagavan Sri Ramachandra, he is worried. If someone writes Rama on that stone, it starts floating. Okay, I'll do one thing. Sri Ramachandra, what Sri Ramachandra did? He only took one stone and he did not write Rama on that. And he did put that into the water. And it was not floating. It did not float. Now Rama, with some confusion, he saw the monkeys. And all the monkeys were like, why this did not happen? Why this did not happen? So if we write Rama on the stone, that stone starts floating. And if Rama only, Sri Ramachandra, he will put that stone into the water, it's not floating. And he got the confusion and he realized also. Sri Ramachandra realized and he started explaining that to the monkeys there. All the monkeys, look at this. What is important here is not the name, it is the belief. It is the belief. I tried it without the belief. I had the confusion. I was wondering why it is floating. So I did put the same stone, but without writing Rama, I did put the same stone, but it was not floating. But when you write Rama on that stone, and with belief you are putting that stone into the water, that started floating. Now, what makes the difference here? Belief makes the difference. Belief, that makes the difference. Don't put the stone into the water with doubt. Don't have that doubt. दृढ़ विश्वास होना चाहिए. You should have the confidence and put the water. Definitely start floating. We have experienced failure, sir. I think majority of you couldn't clear because of your fear, and you had a doubt on yourself, or you had doubt that whether I clear or not. What happens if I don't clear? How to face my family if I don't clear? How to face my friends or the society if I don't clear? You had that doubt. Finally, you couldn't clear. This time, make sure that you believe in yourself, and just like Bhagwan Sri Ramachandra told, you have to have that belief. If you believe that you can do it, definitely you can do it. Who can stop you? No one can stop you. If you don't believe, then no one can make you believe that, and no one can give you the success. Achievement wise, it is you who have to achieve, who has to achieve. No one else can help you in this. No one else can help you in this. So that please make sure that you are the one who will uphold yourself. Okay? Okay. Keeping that in mind, Doha round, you just finished that Doha round and G20. So these two are same as WTO. We will do that in next class. Right now, I would like to wind it up. And before going, I repeat, people, I know that it is little irritating one. These chapters no are a bit irritating, but believe me, it's not difficult. It's not difficult one. I already told you some stories also. Please keep that in mind and do the work. And do the work. Okay. Yes. Everyone, wait. I'll just check for your messages if you have any doubts. कोई नहीं, कुछ नहीं. कुछ नहीं. Okay. Everyone, thank you so much for your patient listening. We'll meet again in next class with the Doha round, and we'll finish this unit and the other unit, last unit. Last unit, no, last but one. We still have 2 units. Okay, tomorrow we are going to finish this units. If possible, the 5th unit also. Later, we will go through the other units here. The chapter number 7. We'll go to chapter number 7. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Love you all. Keep missing me. I miss you. Ram Ram. Jai Sri Ram.